this is like an area where we can not only help build the infrastructure for the next way of how the world communication is going to go through and run through, but also really help influence it.
Welcome to First Commit, a podcast from Notable Capital, where we talk to the builders solving hard problems before the industry catches up.
Today, we are joined by Aviv Shamny, co-founder of Limy AI, a platform building the connection layer between brands and AI agents, helping global companies understand, measure, and influence how agents discover, fetch, and convert on their products across the web. Welcome, Aviv.
Hey, how's it going? Good to be here.
Excited to get rolling. So you have an extremely impressive background across engineering, sales, and large-scale data systems. We would love to touch on kind of how that background informed what you're building today.
Yeah, so first, really excited to be here, and it's good to meet the both of you. Basically, kind of like when we saw this whole shift happening with AI, we understood that this is much more than just like a little tweak of, we can now talk to data, but it's actually going to influence essentially how we're even communicating with kind of like the digital world. And when we deep dive into really understanding the fundamentals of how these things work, that required essentially, our technical expertise and really taking a very, very close look into how these AI agents are interacting with essentially the internet, with digital assets. What is the new networking layer? And so that really got us to a point where we were able to uncover a lot of very interesting things. And, some people say that you don't really need technical backgrounds as a co-founder. I might agree, but I think that was especially now with how everything is changing, that is something that we needed to have in front of us. So, yeah.
For sure. And I feel like most of the Israeli founders we talk to and work with are operating in the cybersecurity domain. And you're quite literally at the opposite end of that spectrum. So what was it about the idea with Limy, or where did you see it firsthand?
Yeah, so we didn't come from, at least I didn't. My CTO did. He's from 8200, also not specifically from the cybersecurity department, but I for sure wasn't a part of the whole cybersecurity clan in Israel, which is also extremely unique and has a beautiful glow and aura behind it. But my background actually comes from a little bit different areas in the army, more special forces. So that was a little bit of a different route. And I think there's a lot of very interesting things that we are now learning in this new digital world around how AI agents are interacting essentially with digital assets, whether it's websites or whether it's content that is being put out there. And the fact that we were able to kind of deviate from the classic Israeli story of cybersecurity to something that is a little bit more unique, I think gave us a lot of momentum too. And also a lot of new perspective around the world and what we want to do.
Building your company in Israel, obviously most of the investors are
cyber.
Very refined cybersecurity. You're a bit of an offshoot there. Maybe walk us through how did that go for you? How was that experience explaining why you guys are not doing cybersecurity?
I think no one expected us to do cybersecurity from the beginning. We're three co-founders, myself, Ido, who used to be actually my commander in training in Special Forces. He's the COO, and our CTO, who's from 8200. So he was like, yeah, why aren't you doing cyber? He also consulted to Wiz and Sierra, that he worked a lot around these fields. But when we started, we knew we didn't want to do, the typical Israeli story. We wanted something that is a little bit different, something that's more unique, something that's more rooted in kind of the infrastructure of how communication is going to go about in the new world, the new internet essentially. And I think cybersecurity, as interesting as it is, one, we don't have expertise in it. Second, we were definitely not, the persona that investors would see. And I think investors were actually intrigued to see a new kind of persona coming into this, entrepreneurship in Israel. In Israel, as you mentioned, a lot of entrepreneurs are very technical, coming from 8200, 49, all of the incredible units that have really incredible engineers and specialize in very unique things very early on in their life. We came in with after 5 years of being officers in the army with a little bit of a different background, more sales and go-to-market oriented, and I think that really refreshed a lot of our investors. And to be honest, we only have one Israeli VC; the rest of them are American VCs.
I mean, you had a similar story, having been technical and served, and then building in a less technical domain.
Yes, I won't steal the thunder here, but we have a very similar background. I also grew up in special forces, and as we figured out right before starting recording, we also grew up in the same little town. So
I know his brother very well.
And yeah, he knows my brother, and it seems to be something in this series because we're already 3 people from the same little town in Israel in this series.
Source family.
We only source family.
That's a good transition into what exactly Limy is doing today. One of the core theses is that AI agents will dominate the web, which I think we're also on that wavelength. And so what does that future look like, and how does Limy play in it?
So I think one of the things that happened kind of like in the past 3 years is that we understood that ChatGPT is not, and of course, like the equivalents, Claude and Grok and everything, you know, all the AI search engines and essentially AI in general is not just us talking to a chatbot, but it's actually going to fundamentally impact how we see, communicate, get information, consume information, execute some tasks. And not only from a consumer perspective, but also from a B2B perspective, from businesses' perspectives. They're transitioning tremendously. And at the beginning, it was just like, yeah, how do I show up on chat? Like that was kind of like, you know, our focus. Like, how do I make sure that I can make brands, products show up on chat? But as we kind of like got even deeper and deeper and started working with Fortune 10s and Fortune 100s, and we started understanding what they actually need, got even deeper into the layer of where these AI agents communicate, we understood that this is fundamentally a much bigger change than just, you know, let's talk with a chatbot, but it's actually a complete different way of how we're getting information. And if you think of it, just like a quick scenario is that you go out, you go to ChatGPT, you ask it for the best running shoes for women running a marathon as an example, just goes out to websites, reinterprets everything and writes it down for you, and you get the answer. You might trust it, you might not, you might go to the link. About 40% of searches end now with no clicks, so people are just starting to stay within. 60% of the web traffic is AI agents. So really starting to see that these AI agents are starting to control essentially how we maybe think a little bit too. And when we came about it, we understood that we need to build something around that layer, that new networking layer that helps brands essentially control their communication with their end consumers, control how their brand is being represented, control what these AI agents are saying about them, and also building the infrastructure for these agents to communicate with brands. So think about it as like kind of like accessibility for agents, being able to access information in the best way possible and then to reinterpret it.
So if I don't want to read too much between the lines here, but walk me through a bit what's the package for a theoretical customer of yours. Do they probably care about how they're perceived, probably decision-making support if it's a B2B use case, and then you do that by somehow putting a layer that the agent can interact with, the customer's layer can interact with?
Yeah, so kind of like how we work with our customers is usually on 3 layers. One of the main thing that every CMO and every marketer wants to know is essentially what he needs to do, what he needs to optimize for to drive the most revenue to the company. It can be clicks or users coming in or Reddit links or GitHub stars, whatever, right? But he need, you know, all these CMOs and marketers need to make sure that they're the first, kind of like the shining star on the keywords and prompts that people are searching. So the first layer that we give them is the ability to actually know what people are searching about them. Literally, like, know what their target audience is searching. And this is like, at its core, it's like the most valuable thing for them right now. On top of that, we're giving them the ability to see what are the sources that are being referred to by these LLMs once someone asks a question, like, you know, what their target audience says. And the third layer is that we give them the ability to make enhancements and recommendation and implement recommendations based on AI agents autonomously. So everything just happens on the go. You know, once they get a little bit of confidence in the product, they can enhance their content on their website. Everything can be changed constantly based on the data, but also on any third-party websites they would need to publish in. Everything is very much executed automatically.
But with the premises that it will influence the perception of the customer side agents. Okay.
With the premise that they're going to be shown. And one of the things that we've added recently is also the ability to tie that back into revenue attribution. So say, okay, we've optimized for, 50 new prompts. Now we're showing up on these supposedly target audience prompts that we needed to focus on. How much has that resulted in sales? And how much does that really have an impact? And some of the brands that we work with have been seeing 8 to 12% of their revenue coming in from chat due to optimizations they did with us. So it's been kind of like a wild ride recently. But yeah.
So how do you maintain control while not having control, essentially, over 1, the agents, maybe 2, the LLMs, and 3, the competition, meaning there's other folks that are also tackling this problem that are trying to gain control. And it can be a little bit ambiguous right now.
Yeah, I think ambiguous is a wonderful word for what's going on here now. So there were, in terms of the control, so I think the shift is so big that everyone's trying to take a little bite. Everyone wants a slice of the pie. And one of the things that a lot of the brands, some of our competitors did, and, they tried to, kind of like give something in the beginning was they're using what's called clickstream data. And that clickstream data is essentially how me and you or anyone in the world is interacting on their browser, client-side browser, meaning, the code that is loaded on a Chrome or Safari or whatever. And that clickstream data is referring to how humans are interacting essentially with the web. So they took all that data, they put it there, they tried to overlay it on agents' decisions and agents' logics on how to surface things, and then they just gave kind of like a similar what I said, but based on different data. So analytics, recommendations, and potentially also the execution. In order to gain back the control in the chaos, we understood that because us as humans and AI agents have a completely different logic, and we might to the browser client side, but the agent has no access to open a browser. It's actually going to the server side, communicating through the CDN. We should actually be right there. We should actually be where these AI agents are actually interacting with websites and content and digital assets. And the way that we gave them back the control to the CMOs and marketers that we work with is being able to understand the agent's logic. Like, why am I going to this website? Why am I not going to the other one? What am I fetching from your content? What piece is intriguing me? What is interesting within your content? What am I attracted to on your website or any third-party websites? And all of that knowledge is being essentially converted into actions they can take. So there's a clear roadmap to any marketer to say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what AI agents in my sector are attracted to based on the prompts that my target audience is searching. And this is what I need to do in order to make sure that I'm top performing. So this kind of like, gets them the ability to be a little bit more relaxed, come to their board meetings and say, hey, we're now showing up better.
How do you find historically marketeers in B2B love a lot of them? They're not the most sophisticated marketeers in the market. How do you find these conversations around introducing the idea of agentic search, agentic positioning? How do they react to that?
That's a really good question because that's something that we constantly battle within our marketing team. Like, what are we going to say? Are we going to say business to agent or agent-led growth? Or are we just going to say show up on ChatGPT? It's like a constant battle that we have.
How simplified you make
it.
Like
how simplified it is, right? Because when we talk to investors, it needs to be these big headlines like agent-led growth and business to agents. But, when you go up to a marketer, like...
Loves a buzzword.
Yeah, right? You guys love it. But when you go out to customers, they don't care about agent-led growth, right? They care about the bottom line revenue, and it's exactly what you're saying. One of the things that we understood is that there's levels of understanding. Also in different markets, by the way, like we sell in APAC, in the United States, in Europe, and Israel. And each market understands completely differently. Sometimes in the US, it's prone to different regions. Like, San Francisco, agent-led growth is like the best term you can put out there. But like in different places, it's just like, hey, let's make you show up on ChatGPT. And I think there are a lot of marketers recently understood that they have to make the transition to have a much more sophisticated tech stack, and they need to know more. And they cannot just go to traditional places because if you think of it, if you're a marketer, right now, someone searching on Google, it's getting AI overviews, right? So it's pushing the ads down. It's pushing the SEO down. So ads are not getting clicked on, so they're costing more. SEO is not as relevant as possible, so people are seeing incredible drops in their organic traffic. So CAC is going up. Organic is not showing as much as they want to, like it's not performing as much as they want to. They need to do something. So I guess you guys see it too. A lot of guerrilla marketing that's been happening recently. A lot of use of AI agents, growth hacking. There are things they're doing, kind of like a reinventing. They're reinventing.
Yeah, but really, it's what organic means is just evolving. You can say it's word of mouth used to be human word of mouth. Now it's like some hybrid
Google
between
word of mouth.
yeah, or like agent human combo word of mouth.
Absolutely. I mean, if agents are making the decisions of what to surface, you want them, you want to be in their mouth in a way. Exactly.
Have there been any hacks or tricks that you found that have made websites or products more desirable for agents that you're advising your customers on? So that's a question we're getting a lot right now is how do we make our website or our product agent ready? And if agents are surfing the web, we want to not only come up first, but we want to make sure that There's a click, it's the follow through. And I feel like this whole GEO space started off, to your point, of just like a dashboard, or not just dashboard, like this is how you're showing up in ChatGPT, this is what you need to do better. And I think that got commoditized quickly. And then I think where all of these companies are going, it's a few different directions right now.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's two things that kind of like really impact. One is like first understanding like what are people searching, right? Like you really want to know essentially what your target audience is searching. But that has also some limitations because whenever I'm searching on ChatGPT, what happens is that ChatGPT translates that into something that's called a query fan out. So I write best running shoes for men running a marathon with knee pain in Boston next year, right? It's such a long prompt. So Chat doesn't really take all that prompt and looks for specific answer to that. So what it does, it kind of like reinterprets it. And the way that's called a query fan out. So it might say running shoes men reviews 2026. Simple as that. Marathon running shoes reviews. And that's what it's going out and sending the agents to go and find sources on. And the way that these agents are actually finding sources is that they're translating that word into a vector and looking for similar vectors. So they're doing vector searches. And I would say that the main, when I always get asked, like, what is the one thing we need to do? So I always say, like, unfortunately, there's no silver bullet. But what the first place I would start at is like first understanding what my target audience is searching and what vector it's being translated into. Because if keywords were a very simplified process in Google of like, okay, you need to have these keywords, they need to have some amplifications, they need to have backlinks or anything that SEO was oriented. Right now, attracting the agents requires to have a very similar vector space to what is being searched and to what is on your website. So they would be attracted to it. I know it's very kind of like a vague answer in a way because, it's a complicated task. So that would be my best advice.
Is the future world where it looks like implementing that almost on the fly in a dynamic way once you have trust with the marketing teams?
Yeah, so today we work with over 200 brands. I think about 20% of them are Fortune 100s. And all these brands are, I think maybe 10% of them are automating. Like everything's completely automated. Brands that have like very, very strict brand guidelines. We work with pharmaceutical manufacturers. It's like for them to say something that's out of balance or out of guardrails is very, very complicated. And they're feeling very comfortable to automate every process. And I think in addition to that, if you really think of the way, even like how you browse around the web, right? Like how often do you go to websites today? Like, you get an answer in ChatGPT. You might go to the link to vet it. I don't think anyone's doing it anymore. People are just looking, we're pretty much staying within these LMs. They're becoming centralized hubs of information. And I think the future of the internet is not us just having beautiful websites. I mean, these websites are still going to exist, but there's just going to be some content databases in the world that they're just going to be, information's going to be taken from them. And if marketers were like, yeah, I'm not uploading this blog post, I'm not writing this doesn't fit my brand's guidelines or brand kit or whatever, right now that doesn't really matter because AI agents are taking it, reinterpreting it, and putting it in front of your audience. So I think it's very much changing.
I'm curious, do your customers talk to you about, a lot of what we're hearing about the next step will be this new infrastructure for ads in generative formats. So chat is the most obvious ones, but also you have generative media where you can insert logos or ads or hints. Is that something that's coming up from your customers?
So yeah, it's coming up a lot. Like they're definitely, they want to see how they can monetize, these LLMs. Chat Perplexity looked at it like November 24. They were like testing ads. They took a step back. OpenAI, as you guys know, recently released, their ad play. They haven't accepted a lot of people yet into their kind of like the equivalent of Google ads, to give people the ability to actually perform ads. But yeah, we're getting that all the time. Like everyone is understanding they need to be there. Everyone's understanding that, they need to monetize that channel somehow. The costs are pretty significant. I don't know if you saw, but it's about $60 for, I think, impressions, which is like 3 times more than LinkedIn, which is right now the costliest platform. So it's quite significant. And it's impressions, not click, which is kind of like the Google model.
How do you think you and your approach are going to be positioned in that world?
The ad world, there is 2 ways to go about it. There is the closed systems like Meta that's like, who do you want to target? We'll find it. We're going to give us the copy. the algorithm runs, we do our thing. You just fine tune your content to make sure it's getting picked up. And there's the second kind of like approach that more of like the Google approach and the publisher's approach, which is like this is the ability, this is the keys to the Bugatti. Take it and drive wherever you want. Like you can go wherever you want. You can build the content. You can decide what to bid on. You can decide how much to bid. Like everything is very open. From what I'm seeing, we also have a couple of customers that are in this like kind of like POC with OpenAI around the ads. It's going to be a bit more closer to Meta. So we won't have the ability to run the bidding because they're going to do the bidding, and the bidding is kind of like where it's the most interesting place. Like what prompts am I bidding on? What prompts I'm putting more money on based on their performance? They're not going to tell you exactly. They're just going to run that for you and you're going to get the end results. But when you're running a campaign, one of the most significant things is not actually the campaign itself, but it's the research before the campaign, what's happening throughout the campaign to know what campaigns to take down, what campaigns to keep, what campaigns to put more efforts on, to create more and duplicate them. And also the post, like kind of like the post-mortem of the campaign, like, researching about it, what happened, what we can do. We come in kind of like throughout all these phases. We cannot do the bidding, but we can help our marketers make the right decisions on what to do. And that's exactly where the money actually really lies in.
Being a founder, we sometimes get lost in the problem we're solving. I find that there's always a really interesting story around the motivation. Why are you so obsessed with the marketeers and how people are going to be doing decision making and buying in this new age of agentic search and web? Maybe walk us through a bit of what influenced you into dedicating some of your prime years to this problem.
Prime years, I love that. That's good. I think there's two things that kind of like came to mind when we started the company. First is that we want to work with a target audience that suits us, like that we're fitted in, like we're welcomed in, I would say. Like if I go to different markets, insurance markets, like I don't know, like, I'm not going to be a great fit there.
You don't give the insurance vibes.
I don't give the insurance vibes at all, Like I would love to, but I don't give the insurance vibes. I think marketers accept me much more. So first we wanted to go to a place where we'd be welcomed in with the people that would be enjoy working. And I think marketing is like so much creativity. It's like incredible people. Things are just flowing. All the money's there too. So like it's quite an incredible department to work at any company, I think. And at the beginning it's very much that, okay, let's help marketers. But as kind of like we started deep diving more and we understood that it's actually much more deep into how information is being communicated to people, we understood this is like a fundamental shift. And this is like an area where we can not only help build the infrastructure for the next way of how the world communication is going to go through and run through, but also really help influence it. And being at that junction of where content and information is being delivered through, I think is one of the most exciting things in the world. So I would say this makes my years prime, right? Like not sitting at the beach or doing, like, the fact that I'm doing this and dealing with these incredible problems. I think this is what makes my life prime.
What do you think is the biggest misunderstanding that current generation marketeers have about AI?
I think the younger folks are like, they're understanding everything. Like they're very much understanding. They're very much out there. They know what they want to do. They see AI. They see it evolving. They love playing with the product. I think like some of the marketers that I work with, I'm 29, some of them are like 21. They're much more advanced than me in AI. They're incredible. They're doing super cool things. I think sometimes where it gets stuck is either kind of like higher management or, kind of like the companies that are having a hard time going through that rewiring.
Applying old frameworks of budgeting to new methods.
Exactly. Like, SEO is like irrelevant now. Like what I used to, like, we're not trying to focus on something else. It's like it's these things that you have to like try to walk them through and understanding. And, sometimes we see it, but you would think that such executive experienced people would have like the ability to make these transitions really quickly. Sometimes it's not only up to them, but we are seeing a lot of the time that there's a lot of like hesitation, stagnation around like things that we find hard to understand why it's taking so much time. And I think sometimes a lot of AI adoption is complicated, especially around marketing, because for one, it's potentially the first or the second largest expense in the company, which is, you don't want to shuffle everything around, at a place where, money is like so impactful. And the second is that this is what drives impact. and shifting and changing things around that place, around the revenue, the leads. What are we were getting a consistent, repetitive funnel that's working beautifully. Why should we change it? It's like, it's hard to make the decision. It's hard to rip off the Band-Aid, I think.
What do you see as the moment typically for Fortune 100?
Once it monetizes for like 3 or 4 months. Like once they see it can actually monetize, and this is not just like, oh yeah, like it's just showing up on chat. Like who cares? It's a branding thing. I don't know if you know, but like one of the things that that companies least invested in was like branding technologies, like social intelligence technologies. Like don't really care
Just
about
like
it.
outsourcing it and using like services for it, or
Yeah, they never really used any software. Like who would pay
It's the first to go.
100K?
It's hard to justify. It's not. It's
Yeah.
intangible.
Exactly. And right now, it's like the most tangible thing. Right now, that's exactly what you want to do. It's funny, but like things kind of like really shifted on 180 degrees.
In full transparency, before starting my company, I used to run global operations for a public company. So all of marketing operations was under my responsibility. And I always thought of the marketing space as, again, this weird approximation, impressions, clicks. Really what we're trying to get to is just intent. If you could tap into someone's brain and understand what's going on there, what are their fears, what are they looking for, what are they trying to accomplish, that's the pure thing. I think fundamentally when the medium is more conversational, you essentially bypass a lot of that, bullshit that we used to engage with in the past. Do you think these modern platforms that you're also building in are gonna like just transition to that pure intent signal?
I think the word approximation is perfect. I think that there's a lot of approximations that have been done in the previous world around the previous Google world around revenue and attribution and clicks and you go to your HubSpot, you see one number, you go to your Google Analytics, you see other number, like everything is like no one really knows. So an approximation was a big part of ops essentially in marketing. I think that right now we're not trying to find human intent, but we're trying to find machine intent. And I think finding machine intent is becoming much more crucial in that world. So machine intent is much more logical, much more comprehensive, much more structured than human intent. And that's why it makes it a little bit easier to decrease approximations and to have literally rooted, accurate numbers.
Just for the fun of it, I do recommend you one time read through the developer traces of Claude Code. It feels very irrational.
Really?
The traces sometimes go like, I should have not said that word. I wonder what the human thinks about me. Maybe I'll go back and do it again. Or maybe the human will think I'm indecisive, so I'll
randomly
continue.
versus not.
Yeah, but like, it sounds freakishly human.
Right, but that's the LLM, right?
Yeah.
And what we're actually trying to influence is not the LLM itself, which is freakishly weird thinking about weird things. It's actually what's called a retriever. That's what goes out and finds these sources and hands off to that freakish beast that you just mentioned to write the answer.
Are you building Limy in New York in person today, or is it still a hybrid in Israel?
So we have 2 offices. I'm actually potentially opening a 3rd one very soon. We have 2 offices. One is in Tel Aviv, where product engineering and design is. Our CTO is from 8200. Our incredible team is all from there. Designers, the developers. It's really like the top of engineers. We couldn't wish for better people.
And the shekel is so attractive.
And the shekel's attractive, right?
The main reason.
But there were times that it wasn't so attractive. And our go-to-market is here in New York, but we also have a couple of West Coast hires. So we are a little bit hybrid in a way, but I think like once you want to take over a market, you have to be in the market. You can't just, be out far. That's why we're also opening an APAC office soon. But, really kind of like to make sure that we're in the place where our customers are. We want to understand their needs, especially around the marketing.
And you've relocated recently to New York.
Yeah.
How's that process been for you?
I love Williamsburg.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought I will never like it. Honestly, as a visitor, I never liked it.
All Israeli founders end up in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Or Upper West Side.
Or Upper West. But I think it's just like Williamsburg is very Tel Aviv vibes. Yeah. Very Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Like short buildings,
Do you want to wrap with a few questions before we close out?
Let's do it.
Does brand still matter when agents are intermediating everything?
Yes. Like matters most, I think.
What is a KPI that a CMO should potentially stop tracking next year?
Clicks.
If Limy failed tomorrow, what do you think would be the reason?
Us founders.
The founders?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Full
it's always
accountability.
I love
founders.
it. This was an awesome episode. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, man.
So much fun.
Really appreciate it.